Good morning. Here we go. Good morning, everybody. It's Chris Kerr, and um, today I want to share a big chunk of value about some insights I have on how communication is getting totally screwed up by everybody. I mean, this is a straight across the board big challenge. Everybody's getting this wrong to some degree or other. And it's next to impossible to get it entirely right. But there's some factors that are popping into this that are really making it more challenging for everybody than they might be expecting, right? Even though it's a crisis, even though there's a big, obvious elephant in the room, sometimes that elephant draws so much of our attention, we forget that the elephant's actually in a room, that there's the whole room around the elephant, right? So what prompted this is that on Saturday, I had grand plans for how I was going to handle the day, and quickly got a couple of client phone calls in. Hi, Philip. Hi, Eileen. And as the client calls came in, I discovered that my energy was dropping. Not a little bit. It crashed at the end of the two calls. Now, if anybody who knew me when I was a teenager or early 20s person, and someone told them that in later life, 2 phone calls would do me in, I'd have just laughed my butt off, because obviously that's lunacy, that's insanity. There could never be a day where that there was no concept of how pain over time with exertion of energy would drag that much energy out of a body to the point that 2 phone calls could do you in. The concept of it is absolutely, as they said in The Princess Bride, inconceivable, right? It couldn't think of it. There'd be no circumstance where I could have understood that. Having gone through it Saturday, I'm like, wow. I'm guessing there's a lot more than just me who, when you go through something like that, you're not able to handle as much as you thought you should. And there's a lot of judgment that you put on yourself. There's a lot of judgment other people put on you. And rightly or wrongly, there's a mismatch in expectations. And that got me thinking about how each of us has our own set of expectations of what our suppliers are going to provide to us, what we're going to provide to our clients, what our clients really should be demanding of us, what our clients are actually demanding of us. The same thing with our government, what we're expecting our government to do, what the government's actually doing, and how we're reacting to that. It's a very odd and very interesting and highly complex social dynamic that we're involved in, especially when you compound that by it being in a crisis. There are people who are losing their internet and losing their minds. There are people who are parents, for example. We have a wonderful 7-year-old little girl that you guys probably know all too much about. But there are other parents that we know as well who have a variety of kids, and they're all home, right? Or maybe they aren't. Maybe they've grown up and they moved away, and that's even more panic-filled. It doesn't matter where on the spectrum you are, whether you have kids or you don't have kids, there are relationships there that now slice that pie up of how people are experiencing this this world crisis in so many different ways. And so the stress levels change, right? I have parents who are complaining that they are bored out of their tree. 5, 6 kids, and everything's going swimmingly. The kids are on their iPads, they're on their computers, they're doing whatever. They come out for meals, they come out to do chores, and that's it, right? I've got other parents who are nonstop a go-go, and they're exhausted from how much they're doing with their kids. And there's literally every shade of color in between. Every shade. I have people who are not parents who are nonstop. They can't get a break to save their lives. I have others who are literally bored out of their trees and freaking out. I have those who are unemployed, who are friends of mine, and that there's no jobs to apply for in many cases. I mean, you've got 26 million job seekers added to the rolls in the last 6 weeks. That's because there are a lot of doors that are closed. I went to pick up a meat order. No contact, all that kind of good stuff. So I didn't have to get out of the car, windows closed, mask on, gloves on, even though I'm not seeing anybody. They just drop it in the trunk and away you go, right? Well, as I did, just driving through Phoenix, the number of foreclosed on signs on business buildings broke my heart. Literally, it's heartbreaking to see all the business foreclosures. Imagine what the residential foreclosures are going to be like 3 months from now, 2 months from now. This is, you can just guess the stress at every level. The stress points are not the same for each of us. And so the expectations are not the same for each of us. Somebody who's flat out working their butts off trying to meet everybody else's needs is not in the same situation as somebody who is sitting at home bored out of their tree waiting for people to get stuff done for them, that they're in the queue, it's coming, but it's not there yet. And the impatience that is just human to get things done is, I mean, you could reach out and touch it. You can smell the adrenaline from through the phone, kind of a thing. So when you put that kind of a spotlight on how every person across the world is different in how they're interpreting stress and how they're interpreting different communication, and you see government and you see media and you see social media and you see businesses and you see nonprofits, you see social media, the different friends and colleagues, everybody's got an opinion, everybody's trying to exert their political force and their political will. And they're trying to get as safe as they can, but as economically advanced as they, and everybody's just in this stress fight for survival because it's a crisis. When you're looking at it in that filter, that's the elephant in the room. But what you're missing is the room the elephant's in the first place. There's a reason the elephant is in that room. And that room is all the things that were culturally different from in the first place. Quite a few years ago now, Columbia University, and I think New York State University, I forget, did a joint experiment. They started in New York, and then they did across the U.S. and across the world, and they did a wide variety of these tests. And the test is called the Ultimatum Game. If you want to learn more about it, there's a great book called Everything is Obvious Once You Know the Answer. Look it up, buy it, read it. It's really interesting stuff. It's dry. It's written by an academic, but at the same token, there's some really interesting content in there. One of the things he talks about is this ultimatum game. And what the ultimatum game is in this context is that you walk up to a complete stranger with $100 or $1 bills in your hand. And you say, you'll split this between them and whoever complete stranger they run into, as long as they make one offer on how they want to split it, and the other person accepts on the first offer. If they don't accept, nobody gets the money. You keep it and you walk away. If they accept, then you divvy up the money and everybody walks away happy. Simple enough, right? Well, they found that on average, the average American just plain offered 50-50 split, and that was good. The lowest on average people picked up in New York, as I recall, was about 30-70. Anything less than that they felt was kind of unfair, unreasonable. Then you go to different parts of the world, certain parts of Europe, you offer them $1 out of the 100. They're happy because it's $1 they weren't going to get otherwise. and you go around the world and it's a different result in different areas. Then they found these 2 island countries in the middle of the South Pacific, and they did the test hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times. Couldn't get anybody. Nobody was willing to accept any offer, no matter what it was. So they upped the ante. They said, well, we'll make it $1,000. See how that works. And oddly, it was even worse. People started to get offended. Everybody said no flat out. So at the end of several hundred tries of that, they brought everybody who said no back into the fold for a second to ask them why. Why did they say no? And it turns out that in those 2 island nations, the US dollar being what it was, they didn't earn a whole lot of money. And there was a cultural rule of thumb that said that whenever you got a gift of a certain size, there was a imperative. There was a debt that was incurred, that you were supposed to repay that gift at some future date with an equal or greater value gift in return. And nobody in these islands wanted to incur that level of debt when they weren't going to make that much money in their lifetimes to begin with, right? It's hard enough squirreling away $100 for them. When were they going to find the time to squirrel away another $100 for somebody else, let alone $1,000? That was ludicrous. That was insane. It was insulting to try and do that to somebody. So as a result, they rejected it every time. Now, think about that disparity, right? From New York, the average American at 50-50 split, all the way down, the entire range, all the way down to not on your life, no matter what you offer. Or $1. It's good enough for me. Everywhere in there, culturally, people had completely different expectations of what was acceptable and what was not acceptable. With the melting pot that the world has become, sure, there are areas where there's a greater concentration of one culture than another, a greater concentration of one religion than another. But generally speaking, even in those circumstances, there are a lot of cultural blending going on. There's a lot of homogenization going on. And so how those homogenizations take place are different in every family. You're not going to get 2 families next door to each other who necessarily have the same approach to everything. They don't. Their cultural backgrounds, they're going to tell you, hey, I've got this great recipe of my grandmother's blueberry grunt, and it's a family tradition. The other family next door, they're not that fond of blueberries. It was never a big thing for them. For them, it's all about the pecan pie. Somebody else, it's about their latkes, right? Or it's about their chili. Everybody's got a different association with food. Everybody's got a different association with products that they use, with hygiene, with games and fun and reading and screen time. Everybody's different. And so your communication before the pandemic was weird. It wasn't received the way you expected it to be before the pandemic. The pandemic only made it bigger. The room before the elephant was already weird. The elephant just compressed everything into a much more accelerated timeline, a much more accelerated emphasis. And so the feelings are bigger, more magnified, more amplified. The egos are bigger and more easily bruised. The impact may or may not be bigger in one sense, but it's always going to be a lot bigger based on the feels and the egos that are right now stressed out or not, in whatever grade and shade of colors it may be. You have every interpretation is heightened, is weighed, is measured. Is that a specific trigger that could mean my or my family's death? Is that something that could mean my or my family's salvation? Those 2 words mean exactly the same thing in this circumstance. Because it's just that little nuance that could be the win or lose, right? When you go to present your communications now, and you're going to reply to something on Facebook, you're going to reply to something on Twitter, you're going to take a politician's statement at blank value. Why would we ever take a politician's statement at face value, at blank value? Why would we ever take a bureaucrat or a government or business official's statement at face value? We never should have in the first place. We all know better than that, but we do, right? Media takes it out of context, gives it back to us. We respond the way they expect us to, with outrage and fury and panic and fear. And sometimes the panic and fear is justified. Sometimes it's not. But it's based on what? We need to be the ones that are able to justify it, not the media, not government, not business, not somebody else. We ourselves need to be able to justify our own panic and fear or reject it. We're the ones who have to be able to say, I can control what I can control, or I can't control it, and I need help. I need help. Lots of people have to reach the point where they can, in good conscience, with self-assuredness and being okay with it, admit they need help. You need help in your communication. You need help in your business. You need help in your job search. You need help in your life. And we need to collaborate as people, not argue. We're so conditioned to argue, to respond to argue, to be right, to only be right. What if we can all be right? What if? What if we compromise a little bit here, a little bit there, and we find ways, maybe not a middle ground, maybe it just needs turned around. Maybe we need to twist it. Maybe it's like a Rubik's Cube, not like a sheet of paper, right? Maybe it's not a coin that we flip. It's this Rubik's Cube, and there's some adjustments we can make to make it better for everybody as we go. It doesn't have to be an as it happens nonstop coin flip. Yes or no. It's not binary. We're talking about some of the most complicated economic and health structures the universe has ever seen. We're talking about it in terms of species complexities like we've never seen before. I'm looking at the Australian wildfires as an example, right? We lost 1 billion animals or more in that one incident. 1 billion animals, one incident. Plus their habitat. Let's put that blunt. It's not just the animals, it's their habitat. There's nowhere for the animals to go back to, even if we can help them grow on their own, right? These are not simple. These are not coin flip. They're not binary. This is complex. And so in complex, it's not a you're right, I'm wrong, I'm right, you're wrong. It's how do we fix this? How do we get better at it collectively? And the more you think about it in those terms, the more you put your business and your mindset and your fears and everything else in the context of collective collaboration. Little bits here, little bits there, not expecting the world from any one individual, not expecting everything to be on your timeline or their timeline. It has to be nuanced, and it's not going to work out perfectly. It can't be perfect. There's no perfect solution to this. There's no silver bullet that's going to make everything the way it was 3 months ago, 4 months ago. That day will never happen because the world has changed. Now, you can say that the change is bad, and that's legit. That's true. But it's also going to cause a tidal wave of innovation that we're going to look back at and say, wow, is it amazing how much we improved in that time period after this crisis hit. You look at what technologies changed from the end of the Spanish flu till now. You look at all the technologies that changed since then, the ones that changed after World War II, the ones that changed after the moon launch. All of these things are massive bursts after a horrifyingly bad incident. We look at the positives, we look at the credit, we live in the positives and the credit after the aftermath is cleaned up of the horrible, the devastating, whatever that negative impetus is. But out of the darkness comes light. It always has. We have at least 7,000 years of experience, documented experience of crap happening and us getting better for it. As horrible as this is, there are an infinite array of positives that are about to come out of this. And we can get there together and handle the panic and handle the fear and handle the challenges, the hurdles, the real problems. People have no money. People have no job. People have no health, right? Whatever that factor is for you, or whatever combination. Some people, it's a combo platter, right? Whatever that is for you, there may or may not be an honest to God solution. There may not. Doctors have to make that decision every day right now. They're in a battlefield condition. Just like in a battlefield, there are some people they might ordinarily try to save, but today they can't. Today they don't have a choice. Oh yeah, I've got a comment on YouTube. I see post after post after post. There are people who are posting bored out of their trees, and boredom causes people to make some really interesting choices, right? Other people are just swamped. I got to admit, I'm a little more complicated because of the pain and medical issues I have. I have obnoxious amounts of downtime due to that compress the time I have left to be able to do everything else that I need to do. But at the same token, our family is just nonstop. That there's always something to do. Whenever the eyeballs pop open and there's a brain to be able to do it, we're a go. Boredom is not one of our challenges, but there are a lot of people in my news feeds who are. They are bored. They're panicked. They are, in some cases, unemployed. In some cases, self-employed. In some cases, they're fully employed. But when they're not working, they're out of their minds bored. And so communicating with people who are ready to pounce on the first sign of hope or the first sign to worry, you have to change how you communicate. You have to change how you present and how you segment your audiences, so that David Ogilvy's risk of insult is the price of clarity quote. You have to segment things so that the people who get the right message for the right audience are in each relevant bucket. And it, like I said, with a Rubik's Cube, you're going to have to adjust that some. Some people, it's going to be okay to have a standard message. Other people, they need that personal communication. You may not have the luxury of being able to give personal attention to each and every one of the people in your sphere, in your customer base, in your employer base. It may not be humanly possible at this time. So you need to build the systems to be able to try and do that. And it's not easy, and it takes time. And this is a time period where people, some of them have lots of time, other people, not so much time. Just, it's not there. So all of this said, the trick in managing this stuff as best as you can is to try to work collaboratively with people instead of competitively, instead of combatively. And there will be people who will try to take advantage of that. And we all know people who've done that to us in the past. There will be people who will not reciprocate to the same degree. That's human nature too. That shouldn't stop us, and that shouldn't change our emotional response. It will, but it shouldn't. Because if you go into it with your eyes wide open, you know that it's going to happen in some cases, and you're going to be aware and able to gauge your engagement with those individuals. And if it's not working the way you need it to, then you can put it on hold, you can put it on pause, or only contribute what you need to in that, and then work on those where you are more effective. In some cases, you need to be the person who steps up and does the bigger load, because the other people can't, for whatever reason. Maybe they have a family member who is on a ventilator. Stress kills productivity. It's one of the top 2 things that kills productivity. And if your stress is that at that peak, surprise, you're probably not going to be all that productive. Let's just be honest about it. It's not going to be your number one focus. You have something else, somebody else that you're focusing on and that is important to you. And frankly, they should be. So our worlds are not equal. Our worlds are not fair. They're not. Our worlds are complex. And treating this as a simple communication will not work. You have to treat it in the context that this is a complex environment and your message should only be going out to those people that fit that particular dynamic. And if you're broadcasting a broader message, you have to broadcast a message that broadly includes everybody, or that you state up front, this is only for the people who are in this bucket, right? If you're in this bucket, this is to help you. If you're not in this bucket, you need something else. You need to be part of something else. So, sorry, somebody had a call in. I had to cancel that. What I was saying is, if you're communicating something and it's not for everybody, state up front, this is a bucket just for the people in this bucket. If you're not in that bucket, this isn't for you. And set up the various buckets and talk about it in that context. Then people can align. Then the messaging can be straight up with the people who are relevant to that discussion, and you can have a positive moving forward communication. What we're not seeing in social media or any of these other platforms is a true understanding that what we're sharing isn't for everybody. I've found that I've snoozed a lot of people in my Facebook feed. I don't want to unfollow them. They're good people. I like them. But right now, their messaging and mine, my ability to engage or disengage, that it's not a good fit. So I've snoozed them. And as a result, my feed is much more positive. It's much more calm. I don't have much in terms of the political side. I don't have much in terms of the news media side. I've kind of extracted most of that so that I can have the communications with the people that I love, that I care about, that are good friends, that I want to see how they're feeling, how their mental state is, so I can be supportive of them. But I also have a feed that is mostly positive contributions to the world. And that gives me a lot more calm, a lot less stress, a lot more positivity, and a lot better ability to disengage from social media and get on with my job, get on with my work. So with that said, I hope you found that helpful. I hope you found that useful as a way of understanding why when you post something on social media, whether it's work or personal or whatnot, you may be finding a lot more people are rambunctious and even discourteous or impolite. And I'm being gentle about that, because what I'm seeing is lost friendships of decades. I'm seeing families that are breaking up over which political leader said what to whom for how many cookies. That's a ridiculous power to give some complete stranger that you've never met over your relationships in your life. That should not be how we gauge our personal relationships with each other. So if I can help you not only understand that better for yourselves, but also help you understand that for your businesses, your clients are going to be in the same boat. If you're advertising right now, a lot of people are saying, hey, what are you doing? And in this economy, in this environment, you're being that crass, that ignorant of the lives being lost and people who are being impacted by the disease and whatnot. And at the same time, I'm seeing others saying, you know what? If businesses aren't able to communicate and advertise and promote, then there's no revenue going on. If there's no revenue going on, there's no jobs, and that's that many more people unemployed. And the crisis just got that much bigger. Not to mention the mental health crisis that's going on with all these people who are stressed out, wigged out, and looking at financial doomsday on the horizon. We're a bigger universe than this. And as a result, we need to be aware of our buckets. We need to be aware of the people and the organizations that impact our lives and whose lives we impact. So I hope you found that helpful. I hope you found that useful. And I look forward to doing more of these in the days ahead. Thanks a whole bunch. Cheers for now.